The full moon hung like a pale eye in the inky black sky. Its light was swallowed by the thick canopy of trees, shrouding the forest floor in an eerie glow. The air was heavy with the scent of pine and decay. And as Riley adjusted her backpack, she could feel the weight of her fear pressing down on her chest. She was lost. It had started out as a fun day's hike with her boyfriend, Mark. They'd been dating for 6 months, and this was their favorite spot. But Mark had wanted to explore a new trail, one that was supposedly less traveled. Now they were both paying the price, trudging through knee-deep water, scrambling over fallen logs, and pushing aside thorny vines. All the while the forest seemed to be closing in around them, the trees twisting and contorting as if reaching out to grab them. And then Mark had tripped. He'd fallen hard, scraping his knee open on a jagged rock. Blood trickled down his shin, staining the forest floor a darker red. Fear turned to ice in Riley's veins. She helped Mark up, her heart pounding in her chest. They needed to get out of here. But every turn seemed to lead them deeper into the woods, the trees growing thicker, the shadows deepening. Finally, just as the last vestiges of daylight were fading, they found a clearing. In the center stood an old, dilapidated cabin, its windows like vacant eyes staring back at them. It looked abandoned, but there was a faint light spilling out from one of the windows. Hope surged through Riley. They were saved. She raced towards the cabin, her feet barely touching the ground. But when she neared it, the sight that greeted her made her freeze. Hanging from the porch roof was a sign, its paint peeling and chipped, but the message scrawled across it was clear: beware. Hesitantly, Riley reached out and pushed the door open. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the smell of mildew. Moonlight streamed through a hole in the roof, illuminating swirling particles dancing in the air. As Riley stepped inside, a floorboard creaked ominously beneath her weight. She could hear Mark close behind her, his breathing heavy in the silence. Then she saw it, a rocking chair swaying gently back and forth in the corner. There was no one in it. Or was there? A chill skittered down her spine. Was the cabin haunted? Had whoever lived here lost their mind? Is that why they'd put up the warning sign? A sudden crash from upstairs made her jump. Her heart pounded against her ribs like a trapped bird. Was she in danger? What was up there? The sound came again, followed by what sounded like a woman's voice, a low, mournful sound. Riley felt a pull, a morbid curiosity urging her to investigate, but common sense screamed at her to get out of there. This was insane. "Mark," she whispered, her voice echoing in the vast emptiness. "I don't like this. Let's just go." She could hear the fear in her own voice, the tremor that betrayed her bravado. But Mark didn't reply. She found him standing by the foot of the stairs leading to the second floor, his eyes wide, his face pale in the moonlight. "I think," he said, his voice uncharacteristically shaky, "that we should check it out." Riley shook her head, but Mark was already moving, his footsteps slow and cautious on the creaking stairs. As he disappeared from view, Riley called out again, this time a little louder. "Mark, come on, please. Let's just go." But her pleas were lost in the cavernous space. She hesitated, fear warring with concern for Mark. She knew he wouldn't listen to her. Not now. So she did the only thing she could do. She followed him. Each step she took seemed to echo her pounding heart. The air grew colder as she climbed, and the scent of mildew was overpowering. Finally, she reached the top and found herself in a dusty, cobweb-filled hallway. Mark was nowhere to be seen. Then she heard it again, that mournful sound, closer this time, and it seemed to be coming from the room at the end of the hall. Taking a deep breath, she walked towards it. The doorknob was cold beneath her touch. She pushed the door open. She gasped. The sight before her made her heart skip a beat. It was a nursery. A rocking horse stood in the corner, its paint chipped and faded. On the floor was a rocking cradle, and on the wall hung a mobile with what looked like a human hand frozen in midair. But what really caught her attention was the doll sitting on the edge of the crib. It was an antique. She could tell, even in the dim moonlight. Porcelain face stared straight ahead, its eyes two dark pits in the gloom. And then Riley saw it, a single word scrawled on the doll's dress. Dead terror tightened its grip on her throat, making it hard to breathe. She stumbled back, knocking over a wooden toy truck, rolled across the floor and stopped at the foot of the crib. The rocking horse creaked. Whirled around, but it was still. Maybe it was just her imagination. She needed to get out of there now. As she turned to leave, she noticed something strange on the floor. A circle of what looked like ash. And in the center, a single playing card, the Queen of Spades. Her gaze flicked to the doll. Was it the same card Riley had seen in the movie? Suddenly, the room seemed to close in around her. The walls pressing in, the ceiling looming overhead. Panic clawed at her throat. She couldn't breathe. Her heart hammered against her ribs, threatening to burst free. She had to get out. She stumbled through the door, nearly tripping over her own feet. The hallway seemed endless. She could hear her own ragged breathing, her footsteps echoing in the oppressive silence. When she finally reached the top of the stairs, her legs trembled beneath her. She could feel her heart pounding in her ears, drowning out all other sound. She descended the stairs, each step taking her further into the unknown. As she reached the bottom, she could hear voices, hushed and urgent. She froze, listening intently. They were coming from the room she and Mark had entered through. He was in there with her, Riley knew, but who was the other voice? Was it friendly or hostile? Curiosity warred with terror, but it was the terror that won out. She turned to flee, but a hand shot out and grabbed her arm. She screamed, thrashing wildly as she struggled to free herself, but the grip was relentless. And then she saw his face, contorted in a silent snarl, his eyes blazing with an unearthly light. His skin was stretched tight over his bones, his lips pulled back in a grotesque parody of a smile, revealing teeth that were far too sharp, far too long. Riley's scream died in her throat as the creature loomed over her, its hot, fetid breath washing over her face. She could feel his presence like a physical force, crushing her, stealing her breath. She tried to move, to call out, but she was frozen, trapped in the grip of primal fear. Base the creature advanced. She could see more of it, the matted fur sprouting from its arms, the claws that glistened like polished bone. The stench of decay filled her nostrils, making her gag. The creature was upon her now, and she could feel its eyes boring into her soul. In a last-ditch effort, she clawed at its face, but her fingers met only air as it vanished, melting away into the shadows like smoke on the wind. Shaking, Riley stumbled back, her mind reeling. Was she going crazy? Had she imagined the whole thing? Then she saw it, the Queen of Spades lying on the floor where the creature had been standing. Her hand trembled as she reached down to pick it up. She had to get out of there. But as she turned to leave, she heard a sound that made her blood run cold. The rocking chair from downstairs was swaying gently back and forth. No one was in it. Running blindly, she burst through the front door and into the night. The forest loomed before her, a dark, menacing presence. She could hear the trees whispering secrets in the darkness, their branches clawing at the sky. She ran, her lungs burning, her legs screaming in protest. But the forest seemed to stretch on forever, the trees refusing to give way, the darkness determined to consume her. Just when her legs felt like they would collapse beneath her, she saw a faint light in the distance. With a surge of adrenaline, she stumbled towards it, her heart pounding in her chest. As she drew closer, she could make out the shape of a house. Relief flooded through her. She was almost there. Then she heard it again, that mournful sound, closer now, like it was right behind her. She risked a glance over her shoulder, but all she saw was darkness. The sound was getting closer, and she could feel its presence, cold and clammy, like a hand reaching out to grab her. Panic surged through her, propelling her forward. She had to get away, had to escape the clutches of the forest. As she neared the house, she could hear the voices of people talking, laughing. She stumbled onto a dirt road and collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath. She had made it. She was safe. Or were the trees playing tricks on her mind even now? Because as she lay there, catching her breath, she could have sworn she heard the whisper of leaves and the sound of something heavy dragging itself closer, closer.